Fairly open forum. We've got some questions to start off with, but if people have questions, we want to have a conversation here. The conversation obviously is around collaborative workflow and what we're doing in the workplace to improve collaboration, some of the challenges maybe that we're facing, and some of the solutions that maybe people here have come up with or that people here are working on, looking at as opportunities for themselves. So I'll introduce myself and then we'll go through the panel. I'm Neil. I work for a company called N². We're focused on how we get people putting away their personal devices, such as their smartphones, their tablets, their laptops, and engaging together in shared screen experiences. So how do they get around a table or around a screen together and actually work together on the same problem at the same time? And so I'm coming at this very much with a view of maybe how does technology solve problems that technology has created? And that's really some of the things I want to talk about. So maybe if we go through and everyone introduces themselves, says a little bit about what they do and what they would like to talk about this evening. We'll start with Steve.
Hi, so my name's Steve Bailey. I'm one of the principals of Melt Studios. We are a design firm based here in Sydney. We design the services and the service delivery for large organisations. So if you think of the likes of banks and insurance companies, we help them with the service that they offer as well as the way in which that service is offered in a way that architects design buildings and industrial designers design things. So we use design as our toolset to solve the sorts of problems that are typically the domain of management consultancies in a lot of ways.
My name's Domino. I'm a workplace interior designer and we work for BVN Architecture, and we specialise in workplace projects that have an element of cultural change. They're usually big and messy and long and difficult, and that's just the way we like them.
Hi, I'm Lauren Ryder. I'm Director at Leading Change Management. We're an organisational change management consulting company, and basically come into organisations and work out what the shared vision needs to be for any changes, and then work out what we need to do in order to make sure that when the change has actually occurred, that everyone in the organisation is on board and has embraced this change with as little disruption as possible.
Hi, I'm Arabella McPherson from Resonate Communications Coaching. Today I spent an hour and a half with an executive at a big media company, helping him adapt his style so that he could speak with his boss. And that's because he's a very nice, warm, friendly guy, and his boss is a very direct, sharp, quick man. So we spent an hour and a half working on the I'm not good enough story and I'll be rejected, and learning how to practice speaking in a very direct, strong way to his boss. I've just come back from the UK where I was coaching advertising agencies over there and talking with the US as well about communication in the workplace.
That's great, thanks everyone. So I'll kick off with a question that's really around staff engagement and the engagement of people, and also the medium that we use to engage with people in our workplace. So let's start with Steve. How do you think the medium that we use to communicate impacts on the level of engagement with the teams that we're trying to communicate with?
I think there's a fundamental relationship between the medium and people's ability to engage and not be distracted. So to be focused, to be in the moment, to talk to one another as well as work with one another. We have a plethora of different ways and devices that we use to communicate with one another. Whether it be via chat and instant message, via text, via email, via video or phone, in face-to-face type of environments. And even then, we sort of switch between the use of words and pictures depending on what it is we're trying to do. Those different choices that we make along the way should be quite deliberate ones. And quite often we work by habit. we use words when a picture would do, or when a picture would be far, far better. We send a text message when a phone call might be better. We will spend all day and potentially all week going backwards and forwards trying to gain understanding through email when a 5-minute phone call would have clarified the issue. But we choose that medium quite often through habit or through a convention that's not really well considered. So I think we've got quite a lot of baggage, for want of a better word, in terms of how our workplaces work, but even how our social environments work. The way in which we engage is quite often simply not appropriate for what we're trying to achieve in any given moment. I don't think we're deliberate enough or intentional enough in the ways in which we do those things. And as a result, we are full of misunderstanding, full of miscommunication, full of bias in our communication unnecessarily.
I'll just expand on that. One of the things that we do is look into each particular user group or each particular team and figure out exactly how they particularly need to be communicated to, because not everyone accepts messages in the same way. So you might find one team that enjoys face-to-face and team meetings and they really like to be engaged through the whole process. Or you might find some other team that go, oh, just send me an email, I'll read it. So you have to look at how you're communicating and actually split that up. Not one size doesn't always fit all.
In our work as designers, we often find that we have to tailor our message and our method of delivering that message to the particular organisation we're working for. So, for example, I worked with Santos in Adelaide, a big oil and gas exploration organisation full of literally rock doctors. You know, we're talking geophysicists, geoscientists, people who are evidence-based learners, and you cannot walk into an environment like that and maintain credibility by saying, oh, you know, it's going to be fabulous, you know. Just trust me. Because they won't. That is not the way they learn, that is not the way they assimilate information. Similarly, when you work with a lawyer type of a legal organisation, they're evidence-based, so you cannot walk in there and say, hey, look, you know, we think this is going to be really awesome, just go with it. They won't do that. So we have to tailor not only the way we speak, the words we use, the method of communication, the style of engagement, how we collect information, how we distribute information to the audience that we have. So we became aware of this probably about 10 years ago, and we realised that it's simply not good enough to be ourselves. We have to be ourselves and more.
I was talking to an agency in the US and we were talking about all of this, but also productivity. It might be better to ring someone up and have a conversation instead of 20 emails, but then you're interrupting that person's workflow. And it gets really, really tricky because not only do you have different people with different styles who want to be communicated in different ways, but you also need to make sure that people aren't replying to emails all day, or they're not on the phone all day, or like you were in and out of meetings all day, and if they are having meetings, that they're productive. How do we get around that? I'm not sure.
It seems to me that what's required is some kind of change in the mechanism that we are used to communicating, and those changes could potentially impact on the culture of the business as well. And we were having a conversation earlier, some of us here, about culture of business and how cultures emerge in businesses. And you know, I'm curious as to how you think some of those changes can be applied within existing cultures when those existing cultures are, as you say, very, you know, kind of formed and rigorous already.
This is exactly right. Trying to deal with cultures is, I mean, changing cultures is one of the hardest things to do. One of the media agencies I'm working with at the moment, it's a very dominant culture at the moment. And I was speaking to the CIO, CTO, Chief Technology Officer, Chief Information Officer, and he said, well, what's wrong with the guy that I'm coaching? Is he intimidated? And I said, yes, he's intimidated. He has to sit with you and the others, the other C-level guys. And he leant forward and he said, I'm intimidated too. And I said, well, that has to change.
When it comes to culture change, the only way it's going to change is from the top down. So if you have an HR department that says, we are collaborative, we communicate with each other, yet your CEO and C-level don't do that, and they don't send information down, and they don't sit down with you, and they don't share that information with you, how on earth can you be collaborative in your approach? So we really have to understand that the sponsorship of these culture changes really needs to emanate from above.
Question from James.
Hi, I'm James Ginter. I work for a restoration building company, and I wanted to ask a question about the multiple facets of communication that you're talking about, and a lot of them can't be recorded, so conversations and texts and things like that. But in my industry, it's very important to protect and collect and file away all communications, particularly when you're talking to architectural firms, designers, builders, contractors. So the overuse of emails is often done on purpose so that people have a record of what people have said and the commitments they've made. So any way that you want to communicate in your business, if you're making a phone call and you're disturbing someone's workflow, you're also not recording what happened. So you're still subject to the vagaries of, oh, I misunderstood what you said, or I thought you meant. So whatever solutions you have, there has to be some way of getting away from having to write to people in capital letters when you're angry. Well, the worst thing is I write in capitals all the time. So whatever solutions are put forward, and I don't know what they will be, but there has to be a way of recording the methods of communication, particularly in my industry.
So one of the challenges that we're dealing with is this compromise between sort of flexibility of communication and the requirements for governance, process, probity in the business. It's particularly there in government, but it's there in most business organisations, or most organisations to some extent or another. We're seeing it as a board issue, this challenge, where you draw the line between the ability for people to work more fluidly, to work remotely, to have access to corporate data in remote locations, to communicate with one another through various means, and then the board to have appropriate governance in place so that they're doing their job on behalf of shareholders, on behalf of regulatory bodies. This is something that boards are grappling with. So if you go and look at the Australian Institute of Company Directors and their agenda for the coming 12 months, you will see these issues being discussed. They do not have answers. They are challenges, and they are well and truly open challenges at the moment.
So, if anyone does have questions, just let Chris know and he'll bring a mic to you. But to follow on from that, do we think that technology has helped or hindered with this communication that's a challenge right now?
Could we just say both? So
we can.
Technology is a problem in various ways. It's problematic for a number of reasons. So I'm on the record as saying that technology and technological progress is relentless. And it's relentless in a way that's not necessarily consistent with a human society. So the technology that we create and the capabilities that we put in place as a result are not necessarily well aligned to the society in which we wish to live, which we live. We live. We are creating problems for ourselves because we go down these paths that aren't actually well thought. We do things because we can, not because we should, and that's a real problem. Now, at the same time, there is an opportunity for technology to resolve these issues as well. And it's by understanding our society and our community and our sense of self, the human in the picture, and adopting the technology to suit the needs and the ways of living that we want as people. And we're not doing that at the moment. We're doing things because we can, not because we should, and we're doing them in ways that are detrimental to ourselves rather than beneficial in a lot of cases.
in the UK there was a big discussion around Gen Y, Gen X, Gen Z, and their short attention span and how they communicate in a very different way to their superiors. And a lot of research has gone into how our minds have changed, in that we can't retain as much information because we're so used to looking it up on Google, and also our ability to concentrate has changed. So when I'm coaching, on Tuesday I coached a group of 80 people in Melbourne for 3 hours on presentation skills, and they were 25 to 30 years of age, and I have to change the activity every 10 minutes. I have to change it, throw them something else, change it again, get them up. I have to make sure that the type of communication is much more engaging and much more rigorous than it was before, and that's due to technology.
We're also seeing one of the biggest challenges in designing new workplaces is understanding that at the moment we've got 4 generations using our space concurrently. And we know through research that in 10 years' time, by 2025, about 75% of most corporate workplaces will be full of Ys, not even X, but Y and millennials. And that's quite frightening for those of us who are left in the remaining 25%. And what we know is that there are various...
You've done that assessment already?
Yeah. I'm not Y. I might be. It depends on how you define X and Y, let's just say. But we know that the various learning styles between those groups has an impact on how they see work, how they... you know, the old adage, the war for talent. Well, I've got a particular client who uses this line that says the war for talent is over and talent won. Like, if you're not providing the generations with the sorts of environments that they need or think they need to do their work effectively, then they're going to go somewhere that will. And so hence the rise of the freelancer, the idea that people will just follow project to project based on what they want to do, not the traditional corporate career path. And what's really interesting is that we're starting to see a translation from the old, particularly in legal firms, the idea that status is defined by space, and you know, the old corner office that's 80 square metres with a mahogany desk. That's disappearing because of the collaboration imperative and the need to be with your team for most organisations everywhere we go. But what it's being replaced with is the idea of technology as status. So you've got the latest iPad, or you've got the latest widget or gadget or whoever, or what's it. And the younger generation don't understand why they can't have the latest, greatest model as, you know, the guy who's been there for 60 years, who probably wouldn't know how to use it anyway, you know. So we're seeing technology playing many roles. So facilitating communication is one thing, but it's becoming a status symbol. And, you know, I was reflecting to someone the other day that even 5 years ago, if you're caught, you know, probably Twitter didn't exist, but you know, if you're updating your Facebook status 5 years ago at work, you're probably going to get some kind of a, yeah, really? Are you really doing that? These days, actually, our organisation has told all of us to go get a Twitter account. We've all got to be active on social media. We're actually running social media campaigns under a mandated hashtag to try and see if we can get a particular topic trending around the world. We've actually got a trending one afternoon. It's hashtag big questions or big architecture big questions. We're trying to actually get a global community of people talking about on Twitter and social media what the big questions for architecture and design are coming up. So, you know, that's a radical change, the idea of how we communicate. So we're communicating in lots of different ways to our clients, to other architects, to industry bodies, you know, it's, all of it is different. And I think, yes, I think you're right in that technology, the change of technology outpaces the change of culture, but it depends on where your starting point is and how well you adapt to what tools you've got coming.
Some of the things we've covered and talked about are relating to very basic social contracts that as human beings we have with each other. And it seems to me that some of the technology that's being introduced and some of the technology that isn't necessarily consciously introduced into businesses but is introduced in people's pockets and they're bringing it into that space is breaking that social contract. Do you think there's ways where we can regain control of those basic social contracts that help us communicate better together and collaborate better together?
I'll give you a case in point. So we're doing a piece of work for the University of Queensland Faculty of Law at the moment, and I'm speaking to the Dean of Law, in my particular experience as being a workplace lawyer that works with, a workplace designer that works with a lot of lawyers. And she's asking me, well, what is the corporate environment expecting of our graduates? You help me and I'll help prepare the graduates. And so we've done that, but we've also asked her, you know, what are you seeing in terms of your graduates and how their careers are flowing and the feedback you're getting from the industry? And she said one really interesting thing. She said she's gone and talked to all the big lawyers around town, and they're saying, look, your graduates are great, but, you know, this guy, I sat him down, I told him what to do, I told him to call the client and clarify a particular issue. Checked in on the end of the day and he said, yep, did that, send him an email. And the partner said, no, I asked you to call him and have a conversation. Didn't want to do that. It's one of the electronic communication. So they're starting to see that there's a lack of interpersonal skills coming out of that particular generation, and I don't know that it's limited to a particular generation or just it will be this way from this point henceforth. And so they're trying to break that. They're conscious that they need to provide the best graduates for the industry. They need to do the interpersonal skills. So we're seeing technology starting to affect educational outcomes in terms of don't rely on it. And they know from looking at their server details that most graduates are coming to uni with 3 devices from the MAC addresses that are being registered on the wireless network. So they've got a phone, they've got a tablet, and they've got a laptop. And I don't know how you deal with all 3, you know. So they're starting to say, no, banned. You're not taking notes on your computer or lecture anymore. You're writing it down by hand and you're listening to what we're saying. Because when you go and start at a corporate workplace, you're probably not going to take your laptop into a meeting with the lawyer and start taking notes on the laptop. You're probably going to be expected to sit there with a piece of paper and a pen. So go and develop those skills on the laptop in your own time, but when you're here, this is the way you're going to do it.
Look, I agree. I actually sat in an interview where the interviewers sat there the entire time on their Surface typing. I mean, it was incredibly disconcerting. I thought maybe he was just trying to put me off, but now it turns out that was just the way that he behaves. Yeah, yes, exactly. Or maybe just Googling what I was saying. That's right, exactly. But look, I agree, it needs to come as a policy that needs to be spread through the organisation. I mean, yes, sure, technology can be used as a collaborative tool, but unless everybody is taught how to use it, in what circumstance, and when they should be using it, I think it will put people off, and it will kind of put people offside, and they won't actually be enjoying in that conversation.
They did a study with CEOs to see what CEOs felt about you bringing a tablet or a computer into a meeting, and they found that 60% of CEOs said they absolutely preferred a notepad and pen. Not only that, but we're not developed enough to be able to take notes on a computer and interact with the people around us at the same time. We're still not that advanced. So taking a pen and paper into a meeting or writing things down is still the best way. Also with coaching, we know that you'll take in about 10% if you just sit there. If you physically write things down, you'll take in about 50 to 60%. And if you physically interact with your body, then you'll take in 80 to 90%. But absolutely, with the younger generation and with other people, older generation as well, because we have email and text and we don't have to call or stand face to face, we're choosing to have the difficult conversations via another less confronting medium. And these people don't have the interpersonal skills to be able to stand in front of someone and resolve conflicts in a much more effective way, and we're finding more and more. Gen Y is struggling. They're way too shy to speak to their boss or to their colleagues even when they have an issue.
I have a question from the board.
So Neil mentioned it earlier, and Neil mentioned it earlier on, the social contract that ultimately exists between an employer and an employee. There are varying degrees that sort of there are varying degrees that you have to look at, from both a workplace design perspective, from a technology-enabled workplace, from a context of culture enablement that we onboard and we understand where our staff are coming from. There isn't as such at the moment, given the amount of technologies that are available, between apps and various other workplace technologies as a universal system that says, if this, then that, as an idea. You know, imagine a perfect infographic that if in this particular circumstance thou shalt do this as a result to get Y prescribed outcome. There are too many emerging technologies, there are too many different ways, workflows, management systems that are occurring. The best outcome, of course, is always going to be an empowered, self-delivery workforce that knows where they're going and feels that they've always got the immediate communication lines open to their direct superiors when they need them. I guess my question sort of revolves very much around, each of you have very, very specific skill sets. And when you look at the outcome ultimately that any given workplace change project has at heart, what are the principal drivers that every single time, because there's got to be a whole bunch of unified ones that you're all finding, what are the principal drivers that you find every single time? And ultimately, what's the major roadblock? Is it coming from a C-level, because it's either A, not technologically enabled? Is it B, because they're not up enough on what their Y and Zs are doing? Is it primarily an engagement thing? We're not actually making sure that our engagement strategy is right, so that we're actually measuring the outcomes of this engagement strategy and saying, yes, we've achieved that. But what are the primary roadblocks that you guys are all finding?
Well, my particular reading of that is that in fact, every project I've worked on in 15 years, primary driver for creating a new workplace has been to enable collaboration, connectivity, and culture. And there are ways that a space can assist on that. Impediments to making that happen are when it's not driven from the top down. It's really got to be embodied by the C-suite, the leaders of the organisation, and if it's not, it won't work. You can build as fancy a workplace as you like, but it's bricks and mortar at the end of the day. So the workplace comes after the culture, or reinforces the culture, but you can't put the workplace first and expect the culture to fit itself into the workplace just magically. It won't. It has to be demonstrated visible leadership. There is another part too which enables fast communication, which is what we're starting, it has been called various things, bump, serendipity. It's now starting to be called accelerated serendipity. It's when you engineer interactions in a physical sense because of how you bring people together. So we're actually, it's almost Machiavellian. We're starting to be social engineers from a physical building perspective. And it works on a number of scales, whether it's urban design, whether it's university campus design, whether it's individual buildings or actually one floor plate. You know, it works on a number of scales. It even works from a city planning perspective. But increasingly, the focus has to be on the collaboration, bringing people together. And when you do that, you have to be conscious about what they're going to need. So from a workplace perspective, they're going to need a place to sit down and talk, or they're going to need to jump into a room, or they're going to need a video conference facility somewhere. You know, you have to then think about the flow effects. But it's about collaboration, communication, connectivity, every single project, everywhere, every sector.
What's the roadblock though?
The individual culture.
There always has to be an organisational culture problem.
Yeah. If it's not led from the top, if the organisation itself doesn't think it's worth doing, there's nothing anyone else can do to make it happen. So it has to be a firmly held belief and a strategic direction that an organisation chooses to go down, because nobody can bring it upon them. No one. And as much as we'd like it to be, it can't be led from the bottom up. It just can't be. What you can do though is you can start to do the 360-degree coaching, or the reverse coaching, which is where you pair a young person with an older person, and that's incredibly helpful for teaching them the technology and the tools and how you communicate in different ways. But unless that senior person is open and welcome to the idea, it won't work. It starts with them, sadly, still.
So one of the questions you asked was around what is the universal way to basically get everybody on board with
That would be
this.
a marvellous thing, a universal.
I've come close. Basically, so first we're talking about resistance. So when people don't want to change. So basically, one of the main reasons that people don't want to change is because they believe they're going to lose something, that they're going to lose status, or they're not going to have as much autonomy. Whatever their reason is, people are really, really scared to lose things. And so that is why you're going to see resistance. Now, the easiest way to change that into acceptance is to allow them to make the decision. So say you want to put a policy around using devices. Well, bring all the young people into a room, call your change agents or what you like, and have them make the decision. What do you think the policy should be? Let them drive those decisions so they actually take ownership. Look, it might not be the ideal solution, but they might come up with some pretty amazing ideas that you hadn't thought of before.
We have a couple of more questions. Angie?
Hi. So my question is to anybody really, but I was just listening to your debate and kind of it really struck me that kind of what happens kind of one year will change the next, and I think that obviously we've gone from an era of, you know, kind of 10 years, 20 years ago of personal relationships one-on-one, and then IT has obviously helped us connect and almost be more remote in our relationships as we are right now. Do we not think that it will come back around again, and more authentic relationships will be the big kind of trend? And it's more, yeah. And the reason why I'm saying it is I work in like consumer goods, and it's about individual, personalised products, about authenticity, about a credible story, and I think those are kind of things that are really at the forefront at the moment of thinking, particularly when I'm working with any of the companies I work with and their marketing strategies and what they're doing. It's all coming back round to authenticity, and it's all coming back round to having one-on-one connections with people, having one-on-one marketing with people. And I just think, I get the whole technology and how that's made us more remote, but I think, do you not think it will come back around to one-on-one relationships?
Absolutely. Interestingly, the company board of directors runs one course that they never ever stop, and it's on time management. And that tends to be the most precious commodity, is time. Spending time with people, doing that face-to-face, is still the most effective way of building customer loyalty and creating a long relationship that will produce more clients and refer more people. That time is what I spend on the phone each night with my clients who call me up to relate one thing or another, and meet up with them for a coffee or lunch. And me giving that time to them is more powerful than me buying them a laptop or a present or anything. It's just giving that human-to-human contact.
So one of the things that I've seen over the last few years from like technologies like Twitter, and a friend of mine thinks of it and refers to it as ambient intimacy. So this notion that we have these sort of small moments of intimacy with a large number of people in a fairly constant way. And it is fairly superficial. It really is. As a mode of engagement, as a means of, you know, like creating a connection with somebody else, it's a pretty superficial one. But what it allows is, when we do get together, to have a bond and to talk about things in a way that we would otherwise never have done for the first time that we met someone. So it provides us with an in that we would otherwise not have, and allows us to have much more engaging face-to-face conversations with people that we would otherwise be strangers with, and to stay in contact with people over the course of months or years that we would otherwise drift apart from. So the technology is providing the space, if you like, for us to have much more meaningful person-to-person interactions. Now, if I think about sort of some of the work we've been doing together, one of the driving principles of a project that Lauren and I have been working on is this notion that technology should be there to enhance the human interactions that need to take place, not replace them and not undermine them. But the role of the technology is there to make those moments more special, more meaningful, richer, more significant than they would otherwise have been. So I agree with you. I think like those person-to-person interactions are already important. The technology is there to help those moments. But some of the social networking things that we see as fairly superficial enable moments that would otherwise not take place at all.
Just on that, I've just finished a piece of work with a greeting cards company, and as you can imagine, sending a card, whether it's a birthday card or a thank you card, has been in decline for years. And that's part of one of the big strategies about kind of how can we connect in a much more deeper and meaningful level and remove people away from social media as a way of just saying happy birthday or thank you, because we know that actually that's just not that's not a very permanent and a meaningful way to connect in a way that actually sending something tangible and physical and permanent is. And it's just something really interesting that's just come out with one of my clients, so I just thought I'd share it as well.
So I just wanted to touch on a few things. I guess I'll go in reverse order. I employ people to communicate with people, and the younger generations that I employ tend to be very clear communicators. What I'm referring to is not their ability to write to people, because they're very, very good at that, but they tend to be a little bit flippant about what they put in their written correspondences. They don't think very carefully about the words, and I try to explain to them that when people receive written correspondence, they will interpret that correspondence. So if you don't choose your words correctly and carefully, you might get the wrong impression. And so what I'm leading on to here is what I call inferred communication. So having a face-to-face, whether it's a video conference or whether it's a face-to-face conversation, you say words, but you also communicate with your body, with your face, with your hands. As you've seen tonight, I did a little bit too much with my hands. So they have absolutely none of those skills. So I'm finding it very difficult to employ them because I require people to do conflict resolution. Construction sites are full of conflicts, and these conflicts can be resolved in 5 minutes of interpersonal communication. But I've had project managers who have spent months trying to resolve a conflict that I go to a meeting and resolve in 30 seconds. And they can't understand how I managed to do that, and it's because I'm saying I'm not writing an email and waiting 4 days for it to come back, and then spending 2 days responding, and then I do it all at once. We get all our emotions out. We then can divorce our emotions from the issue and drill down into the actual issue and then resolve the problem. Whereas I've seen emailed arguments escalate, so the people are actually increasing the font on the capitals. It's ridiculous. And so, I have a great laugh after hours, but not whilst I'm dealing with the problem. And this can be very costly. So any future solution needs to incorporate the body language, the facial communication with the written word. These all have to be integrated together. Otherwise, you will be constantly misinforming people. The other issue I wanted to mention is the idea of the Twitter accounts and that kind of what you said was superfluous communication, or I'm not sure what the superficial, yeah. It's precisely what it is, and what it does is it prevents people from actually getting to know each other. It keeps that relationship on a superficial level. It's great for prior to the first meeting, because it gives you that kind of quasi-shared history, so that you have that sort of, you have a kind of an implied relationship, which isn't really a relationship, but you've had a few words in, so you feel like you don't have to be shy or bashful. However, this generation is, by its very nature, or by its training, very shy and bashful, because it's used to writing something which they can get away with because they're only writing it. They don't have to deal with the immediate fallout of having someone going, and yet if you're at someone's face, you'll measure those words a little bit more carefully because you've got that immediate result that you have to deal with straight away. And I think that's what's being lost. So whatever solutions you guys come up with, and we're all counting on you, it has to include a certain amount of interpersonal communication.
I just want to offer up an example. I had a staff member who was having a difficult time with a project, and I brought it up with her, and we started to speak about it, and we reached the point where she just said, "I can't talk about this anymore." And asked to, like, if we could revisit it at a later time. So this is someone in their late 20s. Can we talk about this at a later time? I need to, like, just step away. So it's like, okay, we can. 5 minutes later, I got a text message.
Yeah.
Following up on, from her, so following up on it. Saying, okay, I couldn't say this to your face, but here's a few more thoughts. It's just like, okay, and I replied, and she replied, and we finished the conversation over the course of like 20 or 30 text messages over the next few hours. But it was interesting that we sort of reached a point of sort of too much tension, if you like, and in order to continue that conversation, she had to shift to a different medium that was not personal. It was bemusing for me as I sat on the bus on the way home, but we at least were able to resolve it, but not in the way that I was kind of expecting at the time.
Yeah.
I needed a tool to give my clients because they were having lots of conflict issues and miscommunication was happening much more than communication. And you're right, body language and vocal tone are 93% of building rapport. Words are only 7%. And, but I found a tool called the process communication model. And that's a tool, that was created by a clinical psychologist, and it's research-based. And NASA's been using it for the past 18 years to select, train, and manage their astronauts. And it looks at 6 different personality styles, but it also says these styles have a very typical distress sequence. And we have all 6 of these personality styles within us. And it has been incredible for me being able to not only coach groups and people, I can notice when someone's going into distress straight away, and you can address it straight away. And it also means I can go into meetings with this very strong CIO, and he slapped the table and swore and shouted, and I slapped the table and swore and shouted too. Whereas in the past, I would have gone into distress going, oh my God, he's so rude. But now I see that that's how he communicates. So it's using tools that are clinically proven, that look at research-based cases, identifying when people go into distress, how to notice it, put all your attention on the other person, and how to resolve it as quickly as possible by speaking to them in the way they need to be spoken to or fulfilling their needs.
So we've got time for 2 more questions. One from Aaron here at the front.
So my question... What is it? Technology. So my question was actually slightly linked into what Arabella was talking about, which is that you can have languages for understanding people, but I think one thing we found where I work is having a language for problem expression and solving problems has been very useful. So I'm not saying necessarily the adoption of this, but we use theory of constraints, and we use that as a way of diagramming and discussing disagreements and problems, and it then became a common language for problem discussion and resolution in business. So my first question is, do you find that tools like that or common language for problem solving in businesses can be a useful way to proceed?
Having a common language, that's an interesting... There is another tool called, is it called Safe Talk? You walk into someone's office and you put a coin on their table and say, I want a safe talk. And they put that into a big pharmaceutical organisation and have these safe talk conversations. But still you're going to have 2 people with different styles communicating. One person will be upset. I spoke to a very big organisation where they have 500 EAs, and these EAs, executive assistants, are upset because the people they work for don't come in and greet them and ask them how they are. And those people are very harmoniser based, where the people who are working for them are very clinical, data based. So the database person would resolve the issue very differently to the person who wants to be recognised for who they are. So a common language is an interesting term. It's, in my view, it's more about creating flexibility in your style so that you can relate to all different people and connect with them as they want to be connected with. Does that make sense? Yeah.
I think that there's a whole bunch of these types of things, and sometimes we call them protocols for engagement, or in fact the core protocols that your company uses. And some of those were taken from the McCarthy work that I did with Microsoft in the early 90s. So there's always kind of basic sets of protocols, and I think if you don't create them yourself as mechanisms for communication, the culture will evolve to create them anyway. And so you either do it consciously, or it will evolve in an unconscious and organic way. If people are really motivated to solve problems, then they'll try and work out a mechanism of doing it, and they'll evolve their own protocols for doing that. Now, they may not be optimal, and that's why it's great to learn from other people that have tried to solve these problems before. You have one question.
You were just talking about protocols.
No, you Gordon. Sorry.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. How are you facing the topics of communication with demographics and urban growth? So, to take an example, if it was just 10 of us in the whole city, we obviously wouldn't need emails or text messages, it would just be us in a room. Now, I think I was reading a report from McKinsey the other day that says about 400 or 450 million people are going to move into cities in China, for example. Now, how are you approaching this topic from a communication level point of view? I mean, do you think it'll get to an extent where human face-to-face interaction has become impossible due to the scale of cities? Or do you have technological or social implementations already in place, or ideas to sort of counter for that? Because, I mean, Australia's only about 20 million people in the whole country, and there's cities with 80 million people potentially coming up by 2030, so how are we going to talk face-to-face?
So as the human race scales up, how do we scale up our ability to collaborate and communicate?
I don't think we'll ever stop talking as humans. I think it's hardwired into our DNA. I don't know that you can stop it if you try, but increasingly it's going to be difficult to get the right people together in the right space. You can see that that's a very clear driver. But I think technology is recognising that, and the kind of the really clunky modes of communication that we've sort of all been lumped with will evolve. And I think, Microsoft has a productivity vision video which talks about what their vision of productivity and collaborating will look like in whatever, 5, 10, 15 years, whatever length of time it will take to evolve. And there are a number of other similar ones where, the idea that the technology that allows two people to talk to each other face to face virtually will become better and better and better until you'll almost be at the point at some point in the future, I don't know when, where it's almost indescribably the same as being physically face to face. So I actually think technology will help solve some of those problems, but I don't know that we'll ever not want to get together.
If you think about the rise of the city, it was driven by the ability for people to work in environments that were distant from where they lived. So transport, mass transportation, was one of the drivers and enablers of the modern city. Otherwise, we were too far away from where work needed to take place, and it wasn't possible to organise on a grand scale of the city. Today, it's communication technologies that are driving the megacity that you're talking about. So our ability to communicate across distance is the thing that will allow a city of 50 million people, 100 million people to exist. It won't be solved solely through transportation. It's too many people trying to move from one point to another in a short period of time in order to get work done. Instead, work will be done from anywhere, and communication and communication technologies will be the thing that enables it. Now, what are we communicating? We'll be communicating face-to-face whenever we can. We'll be communicating in a variety of different ways as appropriate, but increasingly the use of video and telepresence and immersive technologies will replace the need to talk to people face-to-face. But at the end of the day, we'll walk outside, we'll sit down at a cafe, a bar or a street-side restaurant, and we'll engage with people face-to-face. Because the sight and the smell and the touch of another human being is the thing that drives us, and not a screen.
But I also think we will talk to the same people in a number of ways. Like a year ago, the people that I work with, I started using Instagram, and I talked to my work teammates. Saskia's here tonight. We talk to each other on Instagram outside of work. We send each other pictures. I was in this school. Look what's happening. This is where I am. Oh yeah, I'm in, wherever gorgeous place my team is at. Not stuck at work. And we did that, but we talk to each other during the day, and then we text each other at other times, and we email each other at other times, and we might, FaceTime because they're around the world. So the idea of distributed teams is one that's coming, and I think that the co-working, the rise of co-working spaces in part starts to deal with this, and smart work hubs, which is where an organisation might have a corporate headquarters, but then they might have distributed work zones around a big city, so that the people who live in Western Sydney don't have to commute, the people who live in Newcastle don't have to commute, the people in Wollongong don't have to commute. They can all live wherever the hell they want to live, and they can still work for the organisation. And technology is making that happen in terms of allowing mobile communications. People can, and it is enabling freedom and choice. And the idea of flexible work arrangements are actually massive. And it is a wave that is about to come crashing down on our economy, like you wouldn't know. Co-working and smart work hubs.
Yeah, I think that there's two sides to this as well. The best teams I've ever worked with have always been co-located. And we've all been in the same room at the same time, solving problems and really bashing our heads together and staying together, working things through. And so yes, you can communicate and collaborate remotely, but my experience has been the best way to get things done and to get really emotionally attached to solving the problem and get really into it has been to have a group that's co-motivated and in the same space working together. And I think that's going to be a very hard social contract. It is a social contract. It's a very hard thing to break. No matter how good the technology is, I'm still not going to be able to give someone a hug. And that's really valuable. So look, this has been fantastic. What a fantastic... We've talked about modes of communication and how we need to select the right modes and how we potentially need to train people to use the right modes of communication in order to get the message across the right way and collaborate with people in a smarter way. We've also talked about how workplaces can be laid out to improve the flow of communication as people purposefully move. And you said that you think it's a new Machiavellian thing to change the way people behave. I don't think it is. I think we've been doing this forever. I think if you look at medieval cathedrals, they're very well designed to change the way people behave and change the way people view the people within them. And so we've talked about that. And we've talked about how no matter what we try and do here, in order to create a better collaboration and a better collaborative workflow, the big challenge seems to be, how do we get people to change? How do we get the resistance of change and get over that hurdle and address that? And I think that's a really interesting challenge that I don't think is ever going to necessarily be solved with an algorithm that Gordon's looking for. But, because everyone's different.
Algorithms are wonderful.
We're working.
But it's never happened.
But I think the point that Arabella made is that everybody is different. We come at this with, and that's what makes this so exciting, is we have this huge variety of skills and viewpoints, and we come at this with all these different cultural and historical perspectives. And it's this that really makes a team valuable and makes the collaboration important. And so is there ever going to be an algorithm that can address all these different variables? Probably not.